Who would be a Wolves fan, eh? On goes ball. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Wolves Fancast. Richard Hobbs here to talk about. Well, we are going to talk about the 5-1 defeat. Don't get me wrong. We're going to talk about other stuff as well, guys, because we've got Dean and Ed joining me on this bank holiday weekend. Fellas, have you done anything nice today to make up for yesterday?
Go on, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've no idea what happened yesterday. We can gloss over that. A couple of board games, some cricket in the back garden has been played today. It's been a much nicer day. Completely obliterated whatever we will or won't talk about in a couple of minutes' time.
What have I done? I've tried to keep myself busy today to get over it. So I've jet washed the decking, which is always a laborious chore. I then decided to change brake pads on my car, and then I've also built that Mercedes this morning. Which is 718 pieces of Lego. So that kept me occupied for about 90 minutes or so, which was a much more enjoyable 90 minutes than yesterday.
Well, there you go. I mean, who needs football? Who needs football? We do. We categorically, I do, and preferably when my team wins, if I'm going to be perfectly honest. But before we get into the game, a couple of bits from Fancast HQ. We are, of course, hosting our charity football match on the 24th of May. It's going to be Fancast versus Upload United, so a mix of various content creators. It's going to be a great opportunity to raise some funds for Mind Mental Health charity, so it's going to a fantastic cause. If you are able to donate, you can do. I've put the link in the description, and it's also on the screen now. For anyone who's obviously listening on podcast, it's www.justgiving.com/page/Wolves. But again, link will be on there. When you go to our socials, it's going to be at the top pinned tweet as well. We have got a couple of other fundraising efforts to raise money as well. So, Dean, I get to pass it over to you now.
Yeah, so we're always asking for donations and things like that, so I thought I'd do something different. So I managed to get my hand on a pair of extremely rare Predator Elite boots in I think they're called Solars or Citrus, so they're bright yellow. For those that are listening back on Spotify, I'm running a raffle card, which is 40 teams, £10 a team. Pick your team. I'll scratch it off once everything's done. Winner gets the boots, and any of the profit that's made from it will get donated to the Just Giving page. But now I'm going to go full sales pitch here. So with the boots, this is only really for the ones on YouTube. So it comes in a Predator bag, and then these are the boots themselves. So if you want to channel your inner Totti Gomez, which I think Totti wears the laceless ones, not the actual one, the ones with a tongue, which tongues are the best because they're predators. You don't have predators and not have a tongue, do you?
It's not a predator if it doesn't have a tongue.
100%. So that's running over on my Twitter page, my Instagram page. This is the first time since I've been on where I've actually put my handle on my kind of name. So if you want to head over there, I think the Fancast account itself has retweeted it. So I'm about halfway through on the teams. So still plenty of opportunities if you want to get involved. So you might get, as well as donating to Mind, you're also getting a chance to get your hands on some 300 quid worth of football boots.
Yeah. Can't argue with that, can you? Can't argue with it. Oh, I do need to do a shout out, guys, before I forget, because on Thursday last week, I was in the swanky world of the Midlands Business Network exhibition at Wolverhampton Racecourse, as you do. And I'm going around the stands, networking and looking for free pens, if we're being brutally honest. Sort of go over to one stand and I was like, okay, have a look at a pen. Some bloke came over to me. How's it going? And I, yeah, good. Just just having a look around, to be honest, feeling very sheepish that I was quite literally stealing from him, if we're being honest. And kind of go, oh, where are you from? Stuff like that. And he said, oh yeah, we're a web design digital agency from Bromsgrove, and being a son who works for Black Country Chamber of Commerce. I'll be honest, I heard Bromsgrove and switched off, because if you ain't in the Black Country, my merciless sales approach kind of just blind you out. Until he said, oh, you clocked my name badge. And he went, oh, you do a Fancast, don't you? And I went, oh, yes, I do. So shout out to Christian Routley from Phase Web Design, because we had a great chat about Fancast. He listens to the podcast, has done for years. And yeah, it's always nice to meet a Fancasting in the wild. He was like, yeah, you got a recognisable voice. I mean, I'll take that.
Yeah. Don't know how to take that.
But I get a very nice pen as well. So yeah, I'm not going to be company any more than we have done, because again, got to keep it monetized, or we could look at a very good rate on membership to the Black Country Chamber of Commerce if he is looking to champion his business alongside about 700 other like-minded businesses. I'm sorry, I'm going sales pitchy here.
Yeah, we've had two sales pitches. We're only like 10 minutes in.
I was going to say, and one of them
I've got nothing to sell, so I need to make something up now.
It was a long day doing that exhibition, saying pretty much the same thing for about 6 hours in a row. So I'm just in tune at this point with reading off my own bullshit, as you guys know, because you'll listen to it. So without further ado, let's talk about the game of the weekend. Fellas, when you saw the lineup, I'll be honest, I was a bit anxious about playing Man City anyway. They are Man City. I wasn't necessarily filled with confidence when I saw the lineup. I mean, Ed, what was your initial reaction?
In all honesty, other than trying to work out if Aït-Nouri was really going to play right wing back, right wing, inverted, I don't know, some that they all talk about. Are you even discussing football if you're not talking about inverted fullbacks? I was genuinely, that midfield, I was like trying to convince myself that could do a number on Foden, KDB. I was like, Boubacar Traoré, he can pocket KDB, of course he can. And, Joao Gomez, he can kick Foden until he's too scared to come inside. And I was relatively buoyed by that 11, if I'm honest. I genuinely thought Bueno needs some time. We need to work out whether or not he can make the step up. But the only thing that had my head scratching was obviously that right side of defence / midfield of Aït-Nouri and Semedo. It just felt like we weren't getting the best out of either of them. They were definitely shoehorned in. But I was sold by that midfield, to be honest. And I was like, Cunha and Hwang, they can cause some problems. So what do I know?
Dean, how about you? Because you're right, that obviously when you look at it on paper, and I know the tacticals will say that it's not a four at the back, or it is a four at the back. Just go with it. It does look a bit jarring when you see it lined up like that, right?
Yeah, going forward, you were always with Wolves, you always think, actually, if we can counter and we can press, and then we can just trigger on them, and we've got pace in Hwang and Cunha. Cunha can make something happen. He can find Hwang. But then you look at kind of Aït-Nouri, he's kind of stagnated there, and I get the fluidity of the back 4/5, and that works when Aït-Nouri is on the other side, because then Totti just slots in and becomes a left back, and Nelson can just be a right back. And then Aït-Nouri can go and cause havoc. But if you have Nelson and Aït-Nouri on the same side, last week when Doc played at the right wing and Nelson was inside, it was against Luton. Yeah, it wasn't Man City, but Nelson had the freedom to just run. He's never going to get that when it comes to Man City. So when I saw the team, I was like, okay, I like the middle. I did, like Ed said, I did like that combativeness in the middle. I thought, okay, we can strangle them in there. But it just as it kind of materialised, it just didn't happen.
No, and I think particularly when you look at the bench and the fact that we did have like Santi Bueno returning and Bellegarde as well on the bench, it did kind of fill me with an incidence of optimism. And I guess sort of maybe Santi Bueno, I know he came on for sort of the last 20 minutes or so. So arguably probably wasn't fit enough to necessarily kind of go the whole 90 and stick with fairly tried and tested 3 at the back or 5 at the back, so to speak. But I think it's sort of safe to say Man City kind of dominated for basically the first minute, and they very much were out for blood.
Yeah, to be fair, I've got a screenshot on my phone that someone shared after like kind of 2 minutes, I think it was, and Wolves. It was down as Wolves having 100% possession. I was like, I'll keep that forever, and I'll just cut the top bit off. But then no one gets to do that.
Yeah, it felt like Man City just they were there, they wanted it. But I don't know. As Gary Neal said in his post match, the penalty wasn't the deciding factor in the game, but it was a poor decision. And I know maybe we kind of have got a highlight in terms of absent players. We did have an absent manager of the weekend because Gary Neal was suspended. Again, is that going to massively impact the score? Probably not, personally.
It's probably just stopped him getting another booking for arguing about the first penalty, right?
Yes, yeah, it saved the club a lot of admin, I think. But I mean, when you saw that penalty or the decision live, I still kind of it's taken me, 24 hours to sort of rationalize it, because it just felt it's still bizarre. It's just bizarre, isn't it? Right?
It's crazy. Like literally, like Stu. No, it's not a penalty. It's just like he's got his shot off Gvardiol, and it's just a collision. Like, and the ref points for goal kick, shakes his head, and then kind of moves his hand and just goes, "Oh yes, it's a penalty." Like, it just literally, like, his whole body language was just changed by the Man City players' reactions, which most of them appealed out of desperation. They were like, "Oh shit, let's get this goal quickly! Like, let's get ahead."
They did feel like really amped up in terms of like reacting like that so early on in the game, and obviously they've got a lot on the line. They're gunning for the title and all of that. But like when you see like Phil Foden's reaction, and is it cheap to say, "Hey, that's Lamina, he gets a booking"? Do you know what I mean? Like it, but like it was probably, it was like in cricket, like claiming for an LBW.
Yeah, and there's no review. The review system in cricket means that it's actually checked properly and not checked forever, and the umpires are given the overall, if whatever the umpire believes it is, there is that benefit of doubt that we have with the umpire's call. Whereas with football, it just seems to be now, let's be too scared to make a decision and just say go with whatever that bloke in the middle said, because that isn't a penalty. It's only, I think Dean's spot on, it's only a penalty because some superstars have had a whinge at a bloke who's on 100 grand a year and doesn't know what he's doing with his money. And it's pathetic. It's a free one. That's what they used to call it in the 90s. Players got the shot off and you've clattered him. It's not quite the same as Tony Adams sliding in after someone's had a shot and he's done it on purpose. Aït-Nouri's slightly out of position. He's on the wrong side. He's going with his wrong foot. It's clumsy, but it's not a penalty. But like Dean said, I put in the eponymous group chat yesterday. Gvardiol gets his shot off and then he's hit. Nothing is affected by the collision. So it's pathetic, and it wouldn't be the other way around either. They're not.
Oh, no.
They're not. In my eyes, it's not a conspiracy because that's just daft. They're just too scared to make a decision now that goes against the grain, and it's boring. It's really, really boring now to keep talking about VAR, but it's a mistake. It's not the reason we lost, but it is. No. It's the poor decision. It's wrong.
Yeah, and it. I think the only thing I can think of, and because you watch it back and you're right, like he's got his shot away. It's nothing that Aït-Nouri's done has impacted the opportunity. He has not hit him so hard, so ghastly. Actually, no, this is kind of just common assault.
It's not like Onana on Kovacic, maybe we could say.
Yeah.
If you think
also wasn't given.
Yeah. Even today, Joe Gomez in the Liverpool game with Brennan Johnson, he's kicked his head.
Yep.
And then if you think back a few weeks or months, you had the docu on McAllister, on Kevin McAllister, which he was a foot into the chest, but it was just a coming together in the box. Those aren't given, but this one is.
Yeah, and it was just it almost felt like it was kind of pressurized to a degree to giving it, and because of how VAR and David Burns on YouTube says, how can cricket gets it right every time football gets it so wrong, is because it's only overturned if it's on that. Is it clear and obvious? And it's not almost quite up for debate because you can't deny, well, he's caught him. The only difference is that, it's in the box. And yeah, I mean, the only rationale why I think it was given, as opposed to like normally, is his foot's raised. And I think if he just kind of runs into him like he's blocking it, I mean, there's fuck all he can do. There's nothing that Norway can really realistically do. But that's the only thing, that he does have his foot that bit raised. And I think it looks clumsy. I think, and if you see the collision coming together, regardless of what happens with the ball afterwards, but it must happen so often that a player goes in to block a ball.
It happens all the time.
Yeah.
More or less every shot in the box, the person taking the shot gets clattered. I remember there's a couple of seasons back when Jota was still with us, and it was at United, and Jota's had a shot and he's just been completely wiped out. But nothing's given because it was always, like Ed said, it was a free shot. It was you're trying to attempt to block the shot. You haven't done that. It's never looked at further.
No. And we've seen sort of so many times this season and in recent years where I can't remember, and forgive me, I can't remember seeing another penalty like that being given this season in any other game.
Not for outfield players. I think you had the one last week where the Burnley United one where Onana got pinged this time, but an outfield player, I can't recall one.
No, I mean the Onana ones are sort of slightly different as well because of how he,
GBH.
he attacks the player. But it's just frustrating because it's like, you don't think it can get any lower, and then it's like, holy fuck. And you could feel like the relief in that stadium when it went in. It's sort of saying they were so amped up for this game, and just from claiming for the penalty, you could feel like it was, much later in the game than it actually was. That level of like desperation.
Yeah, they knew that it was a potential banana skin. They knew that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and it's a pet tactic as well. Ever since Barcelona days, isn't it? They're always in the ear. They're always chirping away. And I know it's been a tactic ad infinitum. I remember at Arsene Wenger's Arsenal when we were in that Premier League in 2003. They were all in the referee's ear all the time. So it's just what teams with superstars do. And we are far too nice as a squad that we need to get better at the dark arts. But that's exactly what Pep's teams do. They're just always always in the ear of the ref, always in the ear of the lines when they get away with it. He's probably the best defensive midfielder in the world, maybe one of the best I've ever seen, but he gives away about 5 fouls before he ever gets booked just because of who he is and who he plays for. That's just the way it is. That's just playing. The game's the game right now, and that's what we're playing.
Fernandinho, you did it before him. Fabio did it at Liverpool. The only Wolves player that's ever been like that is João Moutinho because he's the little arms up. It wasn't me, ref. He's the only one that got away with it.
Yeah. He was just too handsome. That's why.
Yeah. Too handsome, too polite. Would apologise if it was a foul. It's like, okay, I've understood. But yeah, it's frustrating, and obviously Haaland, being Haaland, took it away. And it kind of didn't stop, did it? If we're going to be honest, we had a bit of reprieve. Wolves did have a bit of back and forth, but it wasn't sort of too long until sort of Haaland got his second, and he'd had a chance sort of prior to it where he, got really high and Sarr made a good save. And again, Rodri's involved, and fuck me, he can leap. Like I say, is it safe to say Haaland's quite good at football?
He's quite good at scoring goals.
Yeah, is that a hot take?
Well, what's the hot take? I don't think Joey listens to this, but he had his viral tweet earlier in the season where he said he'd rather have Cunha than Haaland in his team. That was taken as a very much a hot take.
Yeah, that's That's something. But yeah, I just that just specimen. And like when you sort of see some and like Kilman's lost him, and he's basically next to Semedo, and it's like it's only going to win one way. But when you've got a player who can jump effectively 8 foot in the air and sort of power down a header into the bottom corner like he's, an Italian 90s striker, then what hope you have?
Yeah, it's almost indefensible, isn't it? That kind of goal has been scored since football started, isn't it? You got a big bloke at the back, he pins down the fullback and he heads it in. That's just a given. Just nowadays, they're even more specimens, like you say, Rich. They're now probably able to dunk in the NBA now. I'd imagine Haaland could probably dunk. Do you know what I mean? He's gone that high and he's headed it. And that goal is just, it's a brilliant striker's goal. That's why Haaland's, the player is, and the amount of goals he's already scored in his relatively young career is because he has got those physical gifts. It's just, I think it's indefensible, that kind of goal.
Yeah, well, especially with the position we put ourselves in with Cunha losing the ball. So you had Semedo was backtracking, which if you watch the replay back, Semedo tracks the runner at the edge of the box, which means he's already disconnected from Haaland's peeled off Kilman already. Semedo's come to the penalty spot because he saw a runner coming in. He hasn't seen. Then he's had to try and backtrack to get on Haaland, who's already above him, got the run on him. Like people were slating Semedo for it. There's nothing Semedo can do. No. If anything, Cunha shouldn't lose the ball, and Max Kilman has to do a job on Haaland in the box. Same as Dawson did in the home game. You have to stay skin tight to him and disrupt him. Not let him run off you. Follow him. Get Semedo in that gap. Whereas if you've got Semedo, who's probably about 12 stone, 5'10", 5'11", against Haaland, who's just
not necessarily known for his aerial presence anyway.
Yeah. If it's Doc at the back post, you at least know Doc is good in the air. Whereas that's not Semedo's game.
I mean, that's why I was sort of surprised, kind of pulling back to like the lineup, that we didn't play very much more of a back three, because you're right, and it's reductionary to a degree, but it's like just have someone on Haaland, just make sure, if nothing else, and I know Man City have a plethora of really good attacking players, and you can't just like man mark them all. But if you've got a ball that's got any chance of coming into the box, just stay on him. Like, if it opens up space and De Bruyne bangs one in from 18 yards, okay, fair enough. But it was like all roads led to Haaland yesterday. Yeah. So just try and nullify him and worry about the rest afterwards. But you're right. Like it's so hard to be critical of anything yesterday, to be honest. But particularly like that second goal, just because it's like it's just proper classic centre forward play executed at a really high level. Yeah. It reminds me of. Do you remember like Stephen Fletcher when he went for that spell of only scoring headers at the far post? Because he'd got the technique. He wasn't ridiculously good in the air, but he had good enough technique and ability to kind of get the maths right to keep doing it. And it was like that.
Boy Raul had a spell of that as well, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He just was able to sort of peel off, and when you've got players you can knock the ball into those areas as well, which also helps. Don't get me wrong, but Kilman's probably not in an awful position. But he's got done by excellent movement from a centre forward and an excellent ball from a midfielder. But the game was quickly getting away from Wolves. Let's be honest. And let's talk number 3. Let's talk the hat trick. Let's talk the second penalty, because in real time it looked like a clear foul, and it took VAR bloody ages. I thought, hang on, are we going to get one here?
Yeah, I don't know what took so long, considering the decision to award the first one was done and dusted very quickly, and everyone seems to agree that that's more borderline. This one was just, he tripped him up, didn't he? It was just a foul. But he'd already done, I think, twice by then. Semedo had already cut something out, and he was playing relatively well, slightly out of position. But he was just, we were at sea at this point, weren't we, trying to regroup and not know, make sure, try and not turn it into some kind of cricket or rugby score, and he gets caught out behind him, doesn't he? And it is a foul. And what they were looking at for so long, it was so dull to watch. I can't imagine what it's like in the ground.
Well, the only reason they're looking at just deciding whether it should be a red card as opposed to anything else. That's the only thing I can think of that they kind of undeniable. Like, obviously, the ref didn't give it as a penalty on the pitch, and then it was a case of, is it a penalty? Okay, yeah, he's fouled and he's not made contact with the ball, but it's like, how much of a how much is it coming together and still a penalty, or how much is he just sort of swiped him from behind? But you're right. Yeah.
Or the cynic in me thinks that they knew that they'd have to tell their little mate that he was wrong, so they looked for any other decision to maybe find an offside or a foul in the build, or any other reason to not tell the mate he got it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, seeing him run through was a frankly terrifying prospect. Kind of peel it back before the penalty, because it did just like open up. And was it Kilman he beat on the turn? I can't remember. And Semedo kind of does his level best to get back, but it's just like, he doesn't look quick, does he? And Semedo, I reckon Semedo's pretty hot over like 50 meters. Yeah. But like, when you sort of just see him powering away, it's just like, okay, just something. I was a bit surprised maybe Sarr didn't come a bit further out to try and get to him as well. But again,
he had a bow to the rubies.
Yeah, like, I mean, I don't blame him.
Yeah,
like,
you've got that coming at you. It's like a Space Jam.
Yeah, I was going to go for a Terminator reference. We're sticking to the 90s, yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like, he's just got that written out. It takes a lot to, to do it. He needs saves a penalty, but again, it's 3-0 at half time. Just on the stroke of half time. But hey, I was dreaming of 4-3 after Hwang scored, because we made a change at half time. Bellegarde comes on. And we look all right. We start the second half all right, and a decent bit of play. Bellegarde, I've watched it back. I watched Match of the Day back, and I've watched the Premier League or Sky highlights. And he said that's a really good cross from Bellegarde. I went, it looks nice. It's nowhere fucking near anyone.
It's just a cross. It's not a cross to someone.
It's a cross that's beaten a first man.
Yeah.
And it is from the good grace of Ederson in goal. But cracking finish by Hwang.
Yeah. That's what he gives you.
Yeah. That's what Hwang will do to you. But like, I did kind of go, I didn't think we'd, I joke when we'll get back to 4-3, but I thought, you know what, actually, if we can, a 3-1 defeat to Man City is a really respectable scoreline for me, because like, actually, you know what, we've made them think a couple of times, or just made them push, and it just seemed to like upset them, like they were offended that we'd scored against them.
Yeah, they're on this Death Star roll now, aren't they? Where they're just winning, they're just eating whatever's up in front of them, aren't they? And yeah, you're right. I think it was just poking the bear, wasn't it? That's all we did there. Is like, hang on. But the commentators, I think, are being very kind to us by saying it was a nice cross, because I think it was the first time we'd done anything of any note for a long time when that happened. And yeah, I think it just, like you said, I think it just pissed them off that who are these lot that think they can regroup and come back to us?
Yeah. It was very like Michael Jordan, and I took it personally for me. But to be fair, I said earlier, like, it's hard to be critical of it. The fourth goal did actually really annoy me, because it just felt so basic, and we just looked so exposed. And considering you said we had a 3-man midfield, we had the players to kind of hopefully fill in those gaps in the middle of the park. And it just felt like they just played it through us way too easily. Max Kilman's, a man between two bus stops. It doesn't know whether to kind of stick or twist with Haaland. I don't quite know where the midfield end up, even in terms of just getting it forward. It felt like a really sloppy goal to concede. What was it? It wasn't a million. What was it? Literally a minute after.
Yeah.
And it's a lack of concentration as much as anything else. For obviously we're on such a high, and not to be able to. I don't know. Maybe Wolves were just trying to kind of get another one, and actually, if we'd have got a goal, in the next 5 minutes, actually 3-2. Fucking hell, this is going to really make them sweat. But to be that switched off, just was really frustrating.
I think it's quite impressive that straight after kickoff we can be that out of position.
Yeah,
I don't quite know how that's happened. That's what I kept saying at the TV. No one was answering me. I was like, we've just kicked off. How is Kilman completely on his own? When, surely you just go back into, I've played enough FIFA and Subutio over my time. That's what you do. You go back and you regroup and you start all over again. So I don't quite know.
It's 0-0 just after every goal.
Everyone just yells, it's still 0-0, lads. And it's like watching my lads under nines football. Someone boots it really far and someone else runs onto it. I don't know how we were so out of position straight after kickoff. I don't know what we did.
Yeah, it literally it looks as though we've been done on the transition, but we weren't.
No,
it screams like a counter-attack goal, but it's not.
Yeah, we weren't attacking from to counter us. It was we obviously we got the ball into their half, but we didn't even have that many players committed. It just felt like all 6s and 7s, and they got in their heads that actually we can get forward, we can get something again here, and almost forgetting that the opposition wouldn't do anything if they got the ball back, and it must be like that. It's that difference between like a normal Premier League side to a degree and your Man Cities and Arsenals, because their mentality didn't switch off at that point. They were still sort of so hyper focused even after conceding that it hadn't even crossed their minds that they might concede a second one straight after. It was, oh great, we've got the ball back. Oh, look at all these acres of space. 1, 2, 3, goal. And Kilman, I don't quite know what he's trying to do for the goal, but and again, I appreciate, as we sort of said, it's a hard task, trying to sort out Haaland, and I don't quite know what he should be doing apart from being right-footed in that situation. But he got. I'm worried about his night's sleep if he had sort of cold sweats waking up about Erling Haaland last night.
He's had a bit of a iffy run. I think he kind of, whether it's fatigue setting in or whether it's kind of this system where he hasn't got that kind of I know we've always said it about him needing an organizer next to him. It was Cody, then it was Dawson, and he's not he didn't, same with Totti, they didn't grow up as centre backs. Like Totti grew up as a number 10 or whatever. He didn't start playing football till he was 15. He played rugby before that. So it's these little intrinsic kind of muscle memory things that if you play centre back from a young age, you know how to be a centre back. But because Kilman has the tools to be this fantastic ball playing centre back, that's where he plays. He's big, he's quick, he's good on the ball. He's got the attributes to it, but it's that natural kind of knowing how to defend rather than having to be taught how to defend. Whereas you put like Santi, for example, he's a bit limited at the moment because of the language barrier still, but you can tell he's aggressive. He's on it. He's a typical South American centre back like Romero at Spurs. Like they're just in at it. They know what to do. They can play in the 4 and they can hit you. They're not scared to go in. Whereas Kilman he plays like he's always thinking what he has to do next.
Yeah, I get that. I'm not saying like I wanted him just dive it, just lunging at Haaland, but it was kind of reminiscent to a degree of actually another Man City game, Man City versus West Ham. It might have been in the Cup where I think it was Yaya Toure versus Roger Johnson. And he just kept backpedaling and backpedaling and backpedaling because he didn't quite know what to do in the situation until he backtracked so far. He was basically in his own net. And and I get what you mean about Kilman. And I'm a big fan of Kilman. And I think he benefits from being in a back three a lot of the time.
I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, Dean, but I think you're spot on. When he doesn't look like he's second guessing himself is when he's got the ball at his feet. because he knows what he's doing at that point. He's got a pass in him. He's pretty comfortable on both feet. But yeah, it does look like he's always thinking about what's next when it comes to defending. I've never ever thought about it that way. But yeah, I think it's just not instinctive for him, is it?
Yeah, in the same way, I think Dawson, although he might fail at it, or he might just get completely done like a keeper, I think Dawson tries to stop Haaland a lot earlier.
But he loves to defend. Dawson, he loves that the art of defending, of getting in amongst it, roughing someone up, pushing him, getting the little thing like at in the home game where he just took it off his toe, like the smile on Dawson's face, then getting the respect back of Haaland for it. Like it's that intrinsic. I'm a fucking centre half. Like I'm big, I'm bad. You got to try and get past me.
Like there's every chance if that's Dawson in that situation, he goes in, tries to squeeze him, and Haaland just rolls past him, and Haaland's got a 1-on-1. But and I know it might be again being a bit, I don't know, old fashioned. You do sometimes just want your defenders to defend, and it felt like, you know, Kilman's trying to almost play like a numbers game. Oh well, if I can't cover the space, but in that situation, like the difference is from Haaland's second goal, where we're like, just stay on him, because the ball's coming into the box, it's coming to him. When you're in that situation, I appreciate it must be really hard because, like, as we sort of said about Haaland, he has like every tool in his arsenal. We all know he's predominantly left-footed, you know, and how Kilman sort of shaped up, he's kind of given him the opportunity to shoot on his left foot. But if he kind of blocks him off to go down onto his right foot, he'd probably be fairly comfortable putting on his right foot and scoring. So I get that, like, kind of whatever Kilman does, he's on a hiding for nothing. But you sometimes still just need to do something because ultimately your space isn't going to be the thing that scores, it's going to be the opposition.
And it is hell of a finish.
Yeah.
It's an almighty finish. Like, you wouldn't, like, the XG on that would have been pretty low. Like, and he just banged it in that far corner.
Yeah, what Kilman's done is what you just said there, exactly, Rich. He's playing the numbers, isn't he? He's playing the numbers game. He's trying to jockey, push him wherever he can to try and narrow any angle that he might have. If he dives in earlier and he gets done, we're just going to, call him a donkey for diving in when what he should have done is try and, jockey him and put him out of position. But it's a great finish from a bloke who's already scored. He'd scored his 3 by then, hadn't he? So
yeah, this was it. This was his 4th.
He's on a hiding to nothing, isn't he? There, isn't he, Kilman? He's been left on an island. Maybe that's where he could have been better. But after that, he's on a hiding to nothing.
Maybe that's like the thing with Kilman that, I know slightly splits a fan base in terms of, I guess, how good he really is, and maybe the fact of like why he hasn't got an England call up is situations like that, where I know maybe another defender just buys that extra bit of time. I don't know. I think we're talking about Erling Haaland, who's now scored, I think it's 201 goals in 5 seasons.
It's a joke.
Like
he's a robot.
It is phenomenal. But seeing him get subbed off and getting really annoyed that he hadn't scored 5 was quite hilarious. Like, that is objectively funny.
Yeah, but there's a time and place where you can earn your right to act like that after you've kind of scored something. Like Roy Keane's made a comment today, and
Dean, don't worry, we're going to talk about strikers and earning things later. Don't you worry, don't you worry. But you are right, like being pissed off because you've not staying on because you want to get 5. Yeah, I mean it's big time, and I'm here for it. Unfortunately,
it reminds me of Harry Redknapp told a story about Yakubu, and he had a bet with Yakubu at the start of the season when they were at Portsmouth together, saying, "How many goals are you going to score?" Is what Harry said to Yakubu, and Yakubu said, "I'll score 20 in the league," and Harry Redknapp was like, "No, you won't. Like, I'll give you 20 grand of my own money if that happens." Fast forward to the final game of the season, Portsmouth win 5-0. Yakubu scores 4. They come off the pitch. Yakubu's distraught. He's like, "Gaffer, I should have scored the 5th one." And then Harry Redknapp's like, "What, you scored 4? What you on about?" And he was like, no, I was like, that put me on 19. I needed the 5th to win your 20 grand. Then Harry Redknapp like shit himself. I was like, if I knew that, I'd have subbed you at half time.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's got nothing to, he's got nothing to prove as he, Erling Haaland, and the fact that they don't have any Champions League or anything like that. Pulling him off for, how long was he? I can't remember what time he was pulled off now. Without sort of checking sporadically. He came off the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was almost 10 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And just got replaced with a World Cup winner. It's all right.
Yeah, who went on to score. I mean, to be fair, again, the 5th goal was frustrating, but it was like you could see just Wolves were just mentally shagged at that point.
Yeah.
Like Toti Gomez gets caught up on the ball. Kilman doesn't, again, do an awful lot, but it happens, unfortunately. And I think I saw Gully tweet something on the lines of, we didn't learn anything from the game yesterday.
No.
And I think that's like a really good way of looking at it. Like, Man City were good. We weren't 100% of the races. We don't have the balance in the squad. And you can't just have to put it to one side and not focus on it too much, I guess.
Yeah, we look like a side that were completely shagged. Like the whole squad, like they're running on empty, and City have got something to fight for.
Yeah. Nunes did make an appearance because, of course.
Right.
Didn't do anything though, did he? So.
Rats come out in the sunshine sometimes. I was going to say, the only last thing I will leave it on before we move on and chat about a few other bits and pieces, I'm a big fan of Bueno coming on for Bueno. I like the I like the mirroring.
It was like the FIFA card, wasn't it? The FIFA video where he said, "You stole my name already."
Yeah.
Hugo said.
It is frustrating. Don't get me wrong. Apparently, so Danny P on the YouTube comments. Sorry, lads, these reactions are far too reasonable. What about all these players are shite? Gary's lost for plus and the dressing room to boot. And I heard Kilman plus Duck are our starting centre backs next year. I'd love it. You know what? I can cope with having a reasonable, calm, measured reaction. Whatever. The fuck are you hearing that about Kilman and Doc starting our centre backs next year? Get out.
Joggerty at centre back.
Get out. No.
I think we can be calm and reasonable because we know we're going to finish 13th or 14th, and everyone thought we were going to be 17th at best at the start of the season.
I can't lie. If we get spanked by Palace, I will lose my head a little bit.
That's
I will be a lot more annoyed than I currently am. If in a week's time we're in the same situation, but I don't know. Yeah, it would have been nice to have kind of come within more an arm's reach of them. But I think, and sometimes you do just have to accept that, like, unfortunately, you're up against a really good team, and if we're having any level of an off day with still a bit of a makeshift team, particularly at the back, it's only going to end one way. And you just got to hope that in the next week on the training ground, they can put it together a bit better for me.
Even having Bellegarde back around, being able to start and stuff. Oh, Danny, come on! It's going to happen though. It's like I'm sorry, like it's just that big lump boy scored against us. But yeah, I think having Bellegarde back, we have missed him. Like though he doesn't command a start, he's a very competent footballer and he's got pace and he's got a trick or two. So if you haven't got Neto, if you have a front three of Bellegarde, Cunha, and Hwang, like it looks good.
He gives us a bit of extra width as well, which Hwang and Cunha don't necessarily offer between the two of them, whereas we kind of got the opportunity to go back to a 3-4-3. And yeah, I did think Bouba Traoré again held himself well yesterday. Which
I love. He's like a little puppy. I love him. He's just so exuberant and full of energy.
But he's a good footballer as well, isn't he?
That's the thing that got really underrated against Luton. He got really underrated. Like I know Liam King's touched on it a couple of times where he's kind of a bit of a snotter in the midfield and it's doing him a little bit of a disservice. There's a lot more to his game than that. He can dribble, he can drive, and he loves a shot. And he wasn't too far away with a couple of those at Luton. he's a very competent all-round midfielder that's just getting used to what Gary wants and Gary needs. And I think next season, if we keep him around and don't send him out on loan, I think there's a lot to come.
I'm not alluding anything about Liam Keane, who is a fine journalist. What I would say is that players like Boubacar Traore are stereotypically judged on their physical attributes as opposed to their technical attributes. And there are I've used plethora twice. Oh, fucking hell, Rich. I'm not doing these posh accusations anyhow, am I? But there are a lot of players in the history of football who might look similar to Boubacar Traore, who will get judged on, well, they're strong and physical, when actually they are quite technically good footballers. No, I'm not going to say it.
Like our new signing, Paul Pogba.
Yes. I was like, where's that come from?
I reckon he thinks it's the actual animal. I think he's done what Mark Hamill did, and he thinks he's following some kind of Instagram account about the animals.
Is it watching wolves
going on?
Wolf mentality.
My thing is, it's whenever I see anything like a bizarre transfer link with Wolves, I always go, is it either Wolfsburg or is it Roma?
Yeah.
Like, those are where my head immediately, like, it's like, did they mean us or is it just got picked up somewhere?
The actual guy that tweeted it's like he's a very reputable account. Like he's followed by Fabrizio Romano and things. But then a couple of hours later, he tweeted that Pogba's doing kind of a film. So it's clear that the film is in association with Wolves Studios, and that's where the signing's coming in, seeing as though Pogba's banned until 2027.
You couldn't make it up, could you? I mean, I'm not sure he'd pass on no dickheads policy, would he? To be fair, 2 games left, guys. We talked about Boubacar Traore. We have still yet to score from outside the box this season. Is it going to happen against Palace or Liverpool?
I think Danny P's put in the comments, Boubacar Traore is one that at least has a go, doesn't he? I don't know. That's not Gary's philosophy of football, is it? We work the ball into the box, we work the ball into good areas. I think sometimes you can just have a crack and see what happens, but it's a bizarre stat, isn't it? It's a really strange stat. It's not one that you think about because you normally everyone who doesn't know Wolves just thought that's all we ever scored because of Neves, wasn't it? So
yeah, I think if anything, it's a free kick and it's Doyle or Sarabia.
Oh, I like
that's
that. Another YouTube comment. Well said, Danny. The last 8 games, we've been awful. Gary will send us down next year. Is it time to get out of the chronometer?
No, yet. you can get the photonatometer. That's probably a more reputable angle.
Look, I've shared my kind of fairly open criticisms of Gary O'Neill, and I think we'll progress under him long term. I'm not 100% convinced. Not without improvements to his squad, and I think we're in a fortunate position where we have done well this year with the resources that we've got, but and he's had the good grace of these last 8 games that we've been able to have enough of a buffer in the first half of the season to kind of counteract it.
I think,
but it's not been too much of an issue.
I think if you look at the signings, the summer's so important because if you look at the signing, Gary O'Neill's fun, which is very weird. He's spoken about signings that he made at Bournemouth when we were playing Bournemouth. Like he's had input and he knows what he wants from a player. So with his the summer's so important for him getting players in. I think that this is the best we're going to get with the current squad under him. If there is going to be a revamp of the squad, then in his own mould, then I'll get that 100%. But at the same time, I'd like to know with people. Like people are looking at him, other clubs. So I would like a new contract to come with that if we are going to put our faith in him. And we're going to look at what we did with Bruno. We spent 100 million and then we got rid.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a really crucial summer for Wolves in terms of whether we need signings. We don't just need piss money up the wall, but there needs to be some level of progression within some of these players, and it might mean moving a couple of these players on. Unfortunately, it might be that sort of slightly changing system as well. So, yeah, I don't know, it's going to be interesting. And I think there's going to be a lot of reflective looking at the season. Like if for reasons, let's say O'Neill gets sacked November, it kind of really mirrors Bruno Lage's time. People look back on this season, I think, in the same way we did Bruno Lage's, and that we let it all drop off from February, March time. We had a chance of going into the semi-finals of the FA Cup and all of that. And I think it's going to be really interesting to sort of see what narrative gets written in about 6 months' time.
Yeah, I think the only difference
push
for
on,
me,
then it's fine, and you reflect and you go back on he came in with 4 days' notice and he steered the ship and he steered us clear of relegation, turned us into a really exciting football team, or you go down the kind of more cynical route, I guess.
I think the only difference for me between Gary O'Neill and Lage is that I think I've seen progression in players' ability through coaching, which I didn't see under Lage. So Aït-Nouri, not only physically, can now finish a match, which he genuinely couldn't do a year ago. He's got better positionally. He's got better, in defensively and attacking. We've seen a vast improvement in Totti Gomez. We've seen a vast improvement in how Lamina was able to adapt to different roles. I think we've seen better coaching and player development under Gary O'Neill than we did with Bruno Lage. But we are so hampered by a team that's bolstered by genuine children that I think it's really difficult to really give him any kind of to lambast him for the last 8 games or so when we've got like a kid who's missing his science lesson on the bench. Is just for me. I think we need to hold fire right now and let him have a summer.
Well, something that I was kind of pondering earlier, and it links into transfers, is some of those loan players, and it was the last game in Championship yesterday for the season, so it was funny seeing Blues get relegated, of course. But I kept half an eye on the Stoke score of all games because Kundal got on the score sheet, and Janky Hoover also made an assist as well. And I know I kind of thought, not necessarily do I see them playing next season like regularly, but if someone like Hoover could, let's say, make that step up to be your back at right back again, because he's quietly put in a good sort of 18 months now effectively at Stoke. And actually, would someone being under Gary O'Neill really kind of hopefully push his game on once again? Because it kind of did dip off, or it might be that he's found his level at Championship. So it's like a whole load of those players who have kind of gone out on loan. And Luke Kundal, I don't necessarily see as being, Premier League. I think we're kind of fairly catered for with those 4 midfielders at the moment. But there were a couple of kind of players out there who we've shipped out, but we might have something about them next season.
Even just the young lads that have gone out stayed here in England. You've got Kundal, you've got Hodge, he found his way out of the squad at QPR towards the end. Hoover's had a good season. Lonvoigt's had a good season. You've got these people, at the very least, they're saleable assets. So if we do need to raise funds, these are people where mid-table Championship clubs will buy us between £3 and £5 million, which might not sound a lot, but if you sell 4 or 5 of them, they're all pure profit from an FFP perspective, apart from Hoover, because I don't know what his book value is at the minute, because you've got swindled part of the Jota deal, but the other ones you will be getting from an FFP perspective, they look good. But I think a lot of them, Gary O'Neill will want to get everyone back in the summer, see where everyone is, and then go from there. I think make judgments himself.
Chiquinho too.
Yeah.
Or if you include the 3 lads that are out in like Spain and Portugal as well, like Yerson, Guedes, and Chiquinho, like they'll all come back. And well, God, I don't think Guedes will. I think he won't even. I don't think he'll touch Compton again after how he left, and everything that happened there, and how he kind of fell out with people. But I think everyone else will come back apart from Guedes and our long-haired friend.
Well, I was going to say, and Daniel Podence as well.
Yeah.
I know we had him we talked preview show and stuff, but if he was less of a shit house, he'd be brilliant in this team.
If he scores Thursday and knocks them out, Give him a lifetime contract.
Keith,
I don't care.
Yeah.
Just
Even an assist, Dean. I think I'd keep him on the books forever.
I was trying to work out what I'd want him to do because he can't. Does he still do like a butterfly step? Because you could easily convert that into a W. I think so. I feel like he needs to do something, and I think
I don't know the difference behind that. I don't know what the thing is behind the celebration. Like sometimes he puts a dove, but I don't know if he's just like a secret Albanian.
Yeah,
that is the Albanian.
Yeah, that's what that's Xhaka, Shaqiri. That's what they'll do. So
yeah. I mean, let's talk Fabio Silva because he is the other player out on loan, and once again, like his time at Rangers. I mean, you read the comments, and I know they're pretty brutal up there about him, but what he did today, I think, has the potential to like massively impact his career if he's not careful. I was going to say, for anyone who hasn't seen it, basically he scored just before half time. Really solid kind of work to kind of get there at the back post, wheels off celebrating, then sort of does the whole, kind of doing the chatting with your fingers, and then kind of points to the back of the shirt as well. Doesn't necessarily enamor you to anyone really, particularly when you've been shit for most of your loan spell.
It was quite funny actually. I saw someone on Twitter said that that's a celebration of a guy who's also his agent. He's talking to Celtic about a summer move.
Yeah. He's just a man child, isn't he?
Yeah, he's got like he plays football like the kid at the park who brought the ball, and it's up to him who goes where he plays, when he gets to play. He's one of those footballers that's probably going to end up being one of them what could have been. But I think genuinely, if he was half the player he thought he was, he'd be twice the player he actually is. He has got such a massive view of himself that is completely and utterly based on a half decent loan spell at PSV. That's pretty much it, and scoring a goal against the Albion. What else has he achieved so far? He needs to do what Luke said years ago: get that hair, get the Barnet cut. He's got the sleeve, and that's all he needs. That's all he needs now. But he doesn't pass. He doesn't pass anyone's no dickheads rule, does he? That's the problem he's going to have with his career.
You have to be a very special type of like kind of polarizing figure to score. I think he got two against the Baggies in the end, one at home, one away. But that the one away, I don't know if I'm counting that because of the massive deflection. But anybody else that's kind of got that on their CV would go down as an instant legend. So, but he causes this vitriol within every fan base he's been at, apart from PSV. Even when he was at Anderlecht, and I watched a couple of their games, their fans
got booted out of Anderlecht, didn't he?
It was due to this. He was kind of the attitude and the around the place, but even to I watched a couple of Rangers. If there's nothing else on, I'll watch the Rangers game. Now, whereas today I watched it, and first of all, the standards are shocking. I do apologise to any Rangers fans there. It might be in the chat, but Scott, it's just bad. Like whenever a team plays Rangers or Celtic, all they want to do is just sit behind the ball, dive, and time waste. That's all it is. Like it's those two teams just going in and trying to hit in on the counter. But even today, it's the arm flapping. It's kind of expecting the ball to be passed to him rather than a player shooting. And he is a talented boy, and that's very clear. He's got that natural instinct that a striker needs to be in the right place at the right time. And he can finish, but it's the other stuff that comes off. And obviously, Matt Hobbs has spoken about kind of the intangibles in kind of Cody, and that Cody not the cop form recently and things like that. Whereas Fabio hasn't got them. It is me. And the other, you talk about the kind of Codys and stuff, and they have those off the pitch, and they're a stellar example to the rest of the peer group. And Fabio just isn't that, unfortunately.
No, it's so frustrating because I want him to do well. I want him to, succeed. And it's probably not going to be a Molyneux, but actually, he was a sort of managed to carve out a career for himself. Fantastic. But imagine being somewhere for literally less than 6 months and getting to a point where you feel you need to do that sort of celebration. Like
life needs to humble him. I think Rich. He needs to be humbled somewhere.
And I was sort of hoping it would be at Rangers. Would kind of go, actually, you know what? I can push on from this, and I don't think it will be, unfortunately. And they ain't gonna sign him permanently now. He's you can see the rapport lack thereof he has with their fan base anyway. And there's clearly a player who's half talented in there, which is what makes it even kind of more frustrating. But he's not quite talented enough. It's like we sort of said about Erling Haaland, like he can get away with being a bit chippy, getting subbed off when you've scored 4 goals and you've scored 61 goals in 2 seasons. Yeah. Like you've earned a right to be a bit moody. Like you don't quite get that on a loan spell where you've played 17 times or whatever it is. It's just like it doesn't enamor him to his loan company. It doesn't enamor him to his parent company. Who's it for? And I'm all for footballers having their right to apply, and he has been getting abuse because he's been terrible. But yeah, doing stuff like that ain't gonna help the situation.
Let your goal do the talking.
Yeah.
You don't need to do the celebration. Let the goal. Yeah. It's a good finish. He's read the ball at the back post. He's attacked it. He's got in front of the defender and he's finished it into the corner. Just run off and celebrate. That's all you need to do. You don't got to get petulant with it. And if you're looking to sign him, that there's going to be people scouting him now because it's going to be very well known that Wolves want to offload him in the summer. There will be clubs watching him, and that will put them off. Yeah,
exactly. And it does not help anyone. And that probably seems like a sensible point to wrap up today's show, ladies and gents. Big thank you to everyone who's listened, whether it's via YouTube live or streaming it back or on podcast. It's greatly appreciated as always. You can keep up to date with all things Wolves and Wolves Fancast at Wolves Fancast on X, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you need us. As we mentioned earlier, make sure you go over to Dean's YouTube page to enter the charity football card raffle, raising money for Mind. It will go towards contributing to our pot for the charity football match that we are playing on the 24th of May as well. Once again, the description for that is in the bottom of the details and description for the show. Until next time, it's goodbye from Ed.
See you later, guys.
It's goodbye from Dean.
Good night, everyone.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time.